Welcome to People and Profit and our special show from the 2019 Paris Air Show. Coming up, as the aviation industry grapples with safety and environmental challenges, we ask a top manufacturer what progress is being made. Back to the future, could 3-hour transatlantic flights be on the horizon again? And the low-cost bubble. We speak to an industry leader about the challenges facing the no-frills model. The Paris Air Show has traditionally been a place for bonanza sales offers and big reveals. This year, there are clouds of uncertainty hanging over the industry, the possibility of a looming slowdown, trade tensions, and the global grounding of Boeing's 737 MAX fleet following 2 deadly accidents. It's put the spotlight on Boeing's supply chain, which includes manufacturers from around the world. Among them is French engine maker Safran. I spoke to its CEO Philippe Petitcolin about the impact his business might feel.
Well, we are not impacted at a large scale so far because Boeing, as you know, has decided to keep the production going at a lower speed. We are now at 42 airplanes a month instead of the 52 airplanes and the ramp-up which was expected by the end of June to 57. So we are still at a good production level.
The incidents have also attracted a lot of attention to issues of safety. Has it impacted the way Safran approaches its tests of motors or any of those aspects?
Not really. I mean, we are a company and we build products which have to be totally without any kind of defect. So this culture of security, this culture related to the quality of each component we use is something we have in our DNA for so many years that no, there is no impact short-term related to this accident.
Do you foresee a possible slowdown in orders for the industry as a whole going forward?
I do not think so because there is a large demand. In a couple of months, this should be behind us and we should recover the trend we were expecting regarding the production and the increase in production level for both Airbus and Boeing.
Another increasing point of conversation here is the environmental impact of the aviation industry as a whole. What's the next step for Safran to reduce the carbon footprint of your engines?
We are not totally focused on one single item. We work on the new architectures of our engines in order to make them less fuel dependent. If you look already at the LEAP engines compared to the previous generation CFM, we are already at 15% less usage of kerosene and 15% fuel saving. We are working on new architectures, including open rotors. That's the first step. The second big step is related to electrical propulsion or hybridation, which is a mix, in fact, between thermal and electrical propulsion. We are doing a lot on this, and we are one of the leaders today to provide solutions to our customers, which are existing big customers, but there are a lot of new potential customers in this new field. And the last one is using biofuels, using fuels which are not carbonated.
You mentioned the electric airplane. It's something that grabs the attention, really. Is that something we should really expect in the future, electric airplanes?
At a small scale, yes. Large scale, no, I don't think so. If you talk about large commercial aircraft, if you just look, to give you an example about batteries, just take level of quality of the batteries we have today. Improve them by 5 times. In order to fly an A320, which is worth 80 tons, you need 170 tons of batteries, with batteries which would be 5 times better than what we have today. And if you want to fly 20 minutes, 2, 3, 5 people in a small VTOL, yes, electrical is a solution. If you want to fly an A320 with electrical propulsion, no, not before 2050.
Safran is part of the pan-European team that's developing the new fighter jet, the Franco-German fighter jet.
Exactly.
Where does that project stand and what's the next step?
We're just starting. We are just at the beginning of this new adventure, which should be this new German-France airplane, military airplane. We have already signed an LOI, letter of intent, of agreement, with MTU, which is a leader in Germany in aerospace engines. And we hope that this collaboration is going to bring us to the first real step, which is a demonstrator by 2026. I remind you that this airplane should be in the force in 2040, so we still have a lot in front of us before achieving what is the intent.
There's also recently been a lot of attention and indeed criticism of the sales of French arms to places like Saudi Arabia. Is that something that's impacted your business at all?
At the Safran level, we are not impacted at all by this decision.
Does your defense unit take into account where your products end up in the end?
Of course. We take care of this kind of situation, and don't forget that we are not allowed by the French government to export military products without their consent. They need to give us their authorization before doing such a thing.
Philippe Petitcolin, thank you so much for joining us on People and Profit.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
It's been 50 years since Concorde took its first test flight here in France. The commercial launch came in 1976, and over 3 decades in service, it was known as a symbol of the modern jet age. Since it was retired in 2003, engineers have been dreaming of what might come next.
Okay, one of the startups seeking to answer that question is Boom Supersonic. Founded in 2014, it's raised over $150 million in venture capital. It's a tidy sum, but it's nowhere near the billions it can require to develop even a standard jet. Still, a test flight of a 1/3 size prototype is planned for next year. I spoke to CEO and founder Blake Scholl about how he plans to get Boom off the ground.
Yeah, well, fundamentally, we're doing something that will change the world when it succeeds. And so that means there's a market for 1,000 to 2,000 of these aircraft for tens of millions of people to fly on. And for that reason, large amounts of capital are available, which is good because it is an expensive thing to develop. Today, we're the only supersonic program on the planet that's fully funded through first flight with the money that we've already raised. And so next year, we'll be making our first supersonic flight with our prototype airplane. And that puts us in a position to get the rest of the capital that we need to bring supersonic flight to millions and millions of people.
And talk to me a bit about the market share of business class.
With Overture, we're starting with the largest market that's technologically feasible, and that's business class. So that's about 75% cheaper than Concorde. So instead of paying $20,000 round trip across the Atlantic, it'll be more like $5,000. And at that point, a 55-seat airplane makes sense, and you can see a market for thousands of them. And our goal over time is to continue to get the price of speed down so that the fastest flight can ultimately be the cheapest one.
New York to London in just over 3 hours, Sydney to Los Angeles in less than 7. Boom says it could be the new normal for business class. With 30 pre-orders from Japan Airlines and Virgin Group, it's en route, but the final destination is still a long ways off.
From high speed to low cost, so-called budget airlines have made travel accessible to millions of people around the world. Last year, low-cost carriers accounted for 1/3 of all passengers flying. Well, for more, I'm joined by Bjorn Kjos, CEO of Norwegian Airlines. Thanks so much for joining us. Where does Norwegian see its place in the low-cost industry?
We are actually the biggest foreign carrier into New York, and just beaten by a Canadian carrier into Los Angeles. So we have set a fairly good footprint in US and of course here in Paris and London, not at least. So in the big cities in Europe.
Some of your long-haul rivals, though, like Primera and WOW Air, have gone bankrupt over the last year. Does that worry you?
No, actually, to set up a long-haul operation into a catchment area of 300,000 less than a small suburb in Paris, then you really take a risk. I would never taken that risk.
Norwegian isn't immune to struggles, though. You've recently closed down some bases in Italy, the US, and Spain as cost-cutting measures.
Yeah, that's short-haul, because we see that there is too much capacity from mid-Europe into the Mediterranean, and there is no need for us to go and fight into these leisure routes, because we don't have any feeding passenger into the long haul, so then we should rather be concentrate on the Nordics and our feeder routes.
What about the low-cost industry as a whole? Is it sustainable? Is there anything that we should expect to see changing in the coming years?
No, I don't think so. The change might be on the long-haul side because you will see more and more feeder networks hooking up into the long-haul operation. We have a very good relationship with EasyJet here in Europe, and we cover Europe very well, but we still don't have these systems in the Far East or in the US.
Like other airlines around the world, Norwegian has been dealing with the grounding of the 737 MAX fleet. We know those planes won't be flying in time for the busy summer season. What are your contingency plans?
When the MAXes were grounded, we said, okay, then we hope for the best and plan for the worst. We have always planned for that the MAXes will not be up in the air for earliest August.
What's the biggest challenge for airlines today?
Maybe in some areas you have overcapacity. That means that there might be fewer airlines in some sectors, and now I'm thinking of especially maybe Southern Europe. But there is a lot of room on the long haul. A lot of room. It's actually like transatlantic is dominated by actually 3 alliances, 3 players. So that's a fantastic area to be in.
Bjorn Kjos, thanks so much for joining us on People and Profit.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap from the 2019 Paris Air Show. But don't forget, you can find the best of our coverage on our Facebook page, France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at Kate A. Moody. Until next time, thanks for watching.
France 24 es rigurosidad, precisión y responsabilidad. Somos una familia comprometida con el periodismo y la verdad.
C'est une des seules chaînes d'infos où on nous laisse jouer en plateau avec des Legos, avec des robots, avec tout un tas d'objets.
We take a return ticket to revisit some of the key people and places of the last 50 years of world television news.
على فرانس 24 يمكننا أن نحاور أصحاب القرار من العالم في كل الميادين ولدينا المساحة لكشف ثنايا مسيرتهم.
Aquí en France 24 tenemos a varias personas de distintos países, algo que es un reflejo de cómo es Latinoamérica, con culturas muy distintas. Y allí es muy bonito encontrar que en el deporte todos tenemos algo en común.
Les femmes, elles sont souvent victimes de l'actualité internationale, mais ce sont aussi des actrices majeures de la géopolitique. Et d'ailleurs, on en parle dans France 24.